everyone. My name is Chloe, and welcome to my second half of May wrap-up. So we are just about to go to the neighborhood pool, and I'm like sitting in my room where I've been doing my wrap-ups because if you missed the video where I was talking about it, I have been keeping a stack on this desk in here in my room in hopes that all of the books will stay put, because otherwise I've tried putting them different places, like my completed books, and my kids run off with them, and then I don't have them to talk about, and it's just a mess. And so I've kept them in my room for a little bit, and so it's just easier to film up here. But sun's kind of coming in crazy. I look a little crazy because we're about to go to the pool, and so just bear with me. But I've got a lot of things to talk about. So if you have not seen one of these videos, I'm going to go over my stats for the month, and then I've got the books that I read separated by age range. So I've got some middle grade, some young adults, some new adults, some adults, all of that kind of stuff will be timestamped down below. And let's just get into it. I'll go in order of the in order that I read them within those age ranges. So let's just talk about the stats. So in the second half of May, I had a really good reading month, and you'll see why the stats are the way they are. But I read 24 books and DNF'd one. That's 5,869 pages, and that's 367 pages a day. And that is mind-boggling to me. But we've got a hefty stack of middle grade here. So not all of them are like full novel-sized pages that I'm reading, because we just don't. But I read 245 pages per book, so that kind of tells you that a lot of them are middle grade, and it's a book and a half a day. So I read 11 chapter books, which is what I call the middle grade books that I read with my kids, 11 novels, 1 graphic novel, and 1 devotional. So we finished this devotional this part of the year, but we started it 100 days ago, and you'll see what it is. I read 8 adult, 2 new adult, 1 young adult, and 13 middle grade. So definitely skewed on the middle grade side, but I read a fair amount of adult and a couple of random younger things thrown in there. I read 11 from my shelf and 13 from somewhere else. So that feels actually really good, because the 13 that I read were from somewhere else. I think were all from the library except for 1. I only read 1 from the library for myself, and that feels good. Like, I feel like I'm using my library especially for the stuff for my kids, and I'm reading off my shelf, and that feels great. I read 12 from the library, 8 from Libby, and 4 that were on my shelf. So if I said I read them from Libby, that means that I either listened to the audiobook in tandem or just in place of physically reading, because my physical reading time is not that high. And so even though they were on my shelf, I used Libby, which is a resource from my library that helped me get through some more reading. Next, I read 15 physical, 8 audio, and 1 ARC. So it was a physical ARC, and so I guess it would be 16 physical and 8 audio. I read 4 that are new releases, which means anything published in 2023, and 20 that were backlist. And then as far as genre goes, I read 8 nature, which is what I'm calling anything that has an animal as a main character, 4 women's fiction, 4 mystery thriller, 2 sci-fi fantasy, 2 nonfiction, 2 contemporary, 1 Christian fiction, and 1 romance. So again, all over the board, as I always am. As far as star ratings go, I have the 1 DNF, 2 2 stars, which is rough. 1 2.5 star, 4 3 stars, 4 3.5 stars, 12 4 stars, and 1 5 star. And that averages out to 3.56. And it was like 3.55 or something in the first half of May. So again, very standard for me. So let's just get into the book. So I will start with middle grade. So the first 2 that we read were this Ella and Owen series, so the Pumpkin Pie Fight and the Great Troll Quest. And these are books that my daughters like, and they're by Jaden Kent, I think. And these are number 4 and 5. And I just don't love these books. It's about brother and sister dragons trying to do different things. And so these are my sci-fi fantasy. I don't like them because it's like so much going on, and the pictures are so overly detailed that it's like just chaos, and it's all fantastical. And so none of it, like, it's just kind of hard to wrap your brain around. It's a lot of chaotic stuff that doesn't make sense. And then in the end, you're like, what did I just read? So I don't love these, but they do. So then the reason that my numbers are so high and there are so many middle grade is The Adventures of Sophie Mouse. So I've talked about this series before. We have read a lot of them before, but this month, or this second half of the month, we read all of these. So we read, let's see, what number did we start with? I don't even know. 13, which is Silver Lake Art Show. Sophie the Mouse, she's a little artist. And so they have to do a community service project, and hers is organizing a community art show. With the Great Bake Off, which was awesome and delightful. Her mom owns a bakery, so there's that. The Missing Tooth Fairy, she loses her first tooth, and this is something that is starting to become applicable in my house because I have a almost 5.5-year-old, and she is very curious about the whole tooth fairy losing teeth concept, and so this is fun. She loses a tooth and wants to hold on to it so she doesn't put it under her pillow the first night, and then the tooth fairy doesn't come when she actually does. So what's going on? And the conclusion to this is not my favorite, but these are all like 3.5, 4 stars. They're great books. Next is Hattie in the Spotlight. So her friend Hattie the Frog decides she wants to try out for the school play, and it's just great friendship themes, cheering each other on, letting everybody have their own voice, and I love that. Next is the Ladybug Party. So Sophie helps a ladybug plan a party, and it's so cute. The Hidden Cottage is the next one. Sorry, the reflection. They find a hidden cottage, and her friends have this big plan, and then it kind of gets thwarted, but a lot of found family elements in these, and I love it. Next is the Whispering Woods, you guys, and this one is they go camping, and it's about kind of being scared but figuring it out. And my daughter really wants to go camping. My husband was an Eagle Scout. He's all about camping. I am not about camping, and so I'm if you want to do a family camp out, we can do it in our backyard. And my middle daughter is I'm not really about that life either, so we can come inside after a while. They can sleep outside. It'll be great. But this really was can we just go camping? No, we can't. I mean, they can, but not me. And then this last one is the most current. This one just came out in May of 2023, and it's called Under the Weather. It is the most recent one, and it's number 20, and it is this is my 5-star because this could have been written about my house, because it is about Sophie's little brother Winston gets sick, and Sophie is kind of feeling really jealous, and she's not being super kind, and then she gets sick, and she realizes that hey, even if you get to stay home with mom and dad and do whatever, it's not fun being sick. And that exact situation happened in my house. My 3-year-old got sick first. My 5-year-old was kind of jealous and nasty about it. And then she got sick and realized it was not fun. And this was just so many of these stories are plucked from my life and have so many good conversations and things we can talk about that are very, very applicable. So I highly recommend this series if you've got a 5, 6, 7-year-old, even 8-year-old. This has a lot of those kind of early elementary things about siblings and friends and all, just navigating and learning how to have and form those relationships kind of without your parents. She's at the age now where she's starting to pick her own friends. It's not just the friends that I'm friends with the moms, and navigating those friendships kind of independently. And I'm loving this series. I hope they write tons more. Next is another series that I'm really liking. This is The Secret of the Hidden Scrolls. This is book 2, Race to the Ark. So this is by, let me see, I can't remember who writes these. Oh, M.J. Thomas. And these books are about this brother and sister that they're going to stay with their kind of quirky uncle for a month or something in the summer. And he's got these hidden, these scrolls and things that suck the kids into the Bible. And they have, the scrolls have writing in Hebrew or something. And so the kids have to figure out what the words are. And if they don't do it within a certain time period, they get stuck in the biblical time. And so the first one was when God was creating everything. The second one is they go to help Noah in the ark. And they know that they cannot be on the ark when everything is closed up, ready to go, because that they're not a part of the Bible. And so they're helping, and they've got to get it solved before the ark is done. And so I love these books. I feel like it really brings you to life and brings the Bible to life and brings you right there with them. And it is great. Next is School Trip by Jerry Craft. So this is number 3 in the New Kids series. And this is a series that I would say you need to read in order because it follows the same friend group. And you wouldn't miss anything plot-wise, but there's a lot of relationship dynamics that you would kind of miss if you didn't already know these characters. And so this one, it was my least favorite in the series. And the whole reason is because, like, I am mind boggled by the concept in general. So backstory, I am a Midwest public school kid. We didn't, like, I guess as seniors in high school, we independently did kind of a senior trip, but like we don't do school trips, and these are private school kids. So maybe this is a thing that I just don't know about, but like at the end of the year, and they're elementary school kids, I think, or maybe middle school kids, I'm not sure. But at the end of the year, they are assigned a trip, and the teachers are assigned locations as well. And they go on these trips. These kids go to Paris. And like, what? And like some of the bully kids like go hack with stuff. And so the teachers all get reassigned. They were told where they were going. And then last minute they end up switching. So they kind of get teachers that they weren't in love with going on the Paris trip. And it's a friendship dynamics, and there's, it's a case of bullying where the kid finally stands up for himself, and that's great. But like the whole concept was like, wait, what? Like, who's going on these? Like, they were going all over the world. Like, what? Is this a thing? Do I not know about this? Like, I don't know. And so this was fine, but like, I don't understand what was going on. I mean, I understand what was going on, but like, is this a thing? I don't know. And then last is our devotional, which I'm counting as middle grade because I read it with my kids, but really this will go for any age. I would say this is like a great teaching tool for if you are homeschool or just want to bring some extra science into your house. This is How Great Is Our God, 100 Indescribable Devotions About God and Science. And so these are really cool because it is a devotional that has it has a piece of scripture, and then it has like a paragraph or two that is about some scientific knowledge. So this one is about worms and what they can see and all that kind of stuff. And then the last paragraph is tying that to a biblical truth. And then there's a little prayer and a little bit more information with real life pictures. So I loved this. There's 100 of them, and we learned so many things. And like, I went down so many rabbit holes of different things, like some of the science. I give this like 4 stars. It's not perfect, but it's really, really good. And the reason I gave it 4 stars is just because some of them are like a pretty big stretch between the scientific fact and the biblical fact, and they kind of feel disjointed. But there is like not a follow-up, but there's a second one called Indescribable, I think. And we're reading that now because we just love this idea so much. So, and it's got science about animals, plants, bodies, space. Like there's no part of science undiscovered and like undiscussed in here. So I would highly recommend this one. So now let's get into my one YA. So 6 Months Later by Natalie D. Richards. So this is about a girl who, it says, when Chloe, I forgot her name was Chloe, when she fell asleep in study hall, it was the middle of May. When she wakes up, snow is on the ground and she can't remember the last 6 months of her life. I love an amnesia trope. I love it. And this one is like marked as a thriller. It says filled with tension and heart in your throat suspense that kept me guessing until the very end. And I would say maybe the last 25% is kind of thrillery, but otherwise it's just like this girl trying to figure out, because she goes to sleep as like this B-list kind of person. Like she's known by all, but not loved by all. She's not one of the popular kids. She's like, whatever. She's got this crush on the football player, all that kind of stuff. And then she wakes up and she's this A-lister. She's dating a football player. Everything is like perfect in her life according to like high school standards. And she doesn't know what happened. And in the last 25%, we kind of like her therapist is killed, I think. And we figure out like the mystery because we're trying to figure out what happened for the 6 months. But it's really just her like trying to get her memory back. And then the last 25%, it's like boom, 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 boom. And there's tons of stuff thrown at you. And so I gave this one, 3 stars. It's not one that I'll probably reread. It's not one that I would necessarily recommend. But if it sounds great to you and you maybe have those expectations going in, maybe it'll be better. And the next two I've categorized as new adult because if a character is like between that 18 to 21 range, I will call it new adult, even though like new adult kind of gets a rep of being like steamy stuff, and that's not what this is. So let's just get into it. The first one is As She Fades by Abby Glines. So this one I did in one of my chapter tags, and I was not sure that I was going to keep this one, but I heard there is a huge twist, and I'm so glad I kept this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars, I think. And this is about a girl. They just graduated high school and they're about to go to college. Her and her boyfriend have been together since they were like 6, and they're both going to the same school, whatever. They are in a car crash and he is in a coma. And so she is like at his bedside all day, every day, doesn't do anything except go home and to the hospital back and forth. And she meets this guy named Slate who is there visiting his uncle who is kind of terminally ill with cancer. And so they kind of strike up a friendship, and she kind of starts to think about, like, is this what Crawford, my boyfriend, would want? Is this what is best for me? Do I go to college? Do I not? Because this happened, like, right after graduation, and so she's spending the summer here in the hospital, but, like, should she just go on and go to college and keep their plans, or what should she do? And I liked this book. I did like this book. The twist is definitely something that I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming. And I sort of buddy read this with my subscriber, Glenda. She's my favorite. She was on a trip and like knew she wouldn't be able to get to it when I was able to get to it. And so we talked about our thoughts, but just kind of not at the same time. And I thought there was a little ambiguity in kind of what happened, and she didn't necessarily see it that way, and I thought that was really interesting to talk about and think about. And it's hard to say a whole lot without like revealing the twist, so I'm just going to stop here and say that I enjoyed this book. There's some of the romantic elements that I didn't love, and like her and Slate, their relationship was interesting, but also like I kind of wish that it would have just been independent of anything. But there's deep bonding. Like this was just a lot more than I expected in a very good way. Next is this chunker. This is Postcards from Summer by Cynthia Platt, and that's gonna be hard to. There you go. This is over like almost 600 pages, and for a contemporary like romance, that is a lot for me. It is a lot. And this was 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this more than I thought, but it was still a lot. So it's about this girl. She decides to go to Mackinac Island to try to find out more about her mother. And her mom left all these postcards, I think. And so we get both timelines, the mom and the daughter. And she's just trying to discover who her mom was. And kind of, so there is romantic elements, but I definitely would say this is more like women's fiction contemporary than romance. And it was fine. I thought kind of the whole twist, the resolution was not great, but this does give summer vibes, island vibes. And I enjoyed it for the most part. It's just, it could have been a lot shorter, and I think it needed to be. So now we get into the adult books. And the first one I read is Victoria's Cool Now by Victoria Fulton, Ellie is Cool Now by Victoria Fulton and Faith McLaren. So this is about a girl who she has to go, back to her 10-year reunion, high school reunion or something. And she's got like these to-do lists based on the high school superlatives. So like have coffee with the best hair or whatever. And this was so dumb. So I think it's a 10-year reunion because they're 28, they're almost 30 years old. And yet the drama and the angst and all of that was like, they were like not even 18 years old. And this was just dumb. And there's 1,000 characters that none of them felt differentiated at all. So I was like, I don't care. This is stupid. This is juvenile, especially given that you're almost 30 years old. I'm not into this. And I think I gave this 2 or 2.5 stars, 2.5 stars. Then this arc that I read was Lisa Jewell, None of This Is True. So the cover has since been revealed, but the copy I have does not have it. And I gave this 4 stars. Lisa Jewell does really great short chapters. And so this was a great one to read physically. This comes out, I think, August 8th-ish. Actually, it might say on here. Yeah, August 8th. And I like this one a lot. 4 stars. It is about a woman who has a pretty successful podcast, and she decides, and then this other woman who meets her because they are birthday buddies. So they are both celebrating their 45th birthday. They find out they were born in the same hospital, yada, yada, yada. The one who is not the podcaster kind of like wants to strike up a friendship, and so she's a little over involved. She's got a lot of shadiness. She's not very well off, whereas the podcaster is. And so she just kind of infiltrates herself into the podcaster's life and things get really sinister. And the whole time, the podcaster has decided to start a series about this woman's history because she's got an interesting past of, she's married to a man that's like 50 years older than her, and they've been together since she was like 14. So there's some grooming stuff going on. And there's just a lot that you don't really know. And the whole time, they're telling this in podcast form. So you get, like actually what's happening throughout the time. And then the podcast has been turned into a true crime Netflix series. And so this was just really, really good. I would definitely recommend this. 4 stars for sure. Next is Maternity Leave by Julie Halpern. And this is one that I just got from our library book sale. And I think this has pretty low ratings on Goodreads. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It is about a woman on maternity leave. She just had her first baby, and she's like kind of struggling to be attached. And she is really like more bonded with her cat than her baby. And this is told in like the number of days, so it's like 3 days old. There's not quite like clear chapters as much as like 10 days old, and so it's told every day of the baby's life, and it's her figuring out motherhood, some postpartum depression issues, kind of what it means to be a mom, how to do all that, and then at the end she has to go back to work. And so we see, does she want to, like, because throughout her maternity leave she's like, just get me back to work, this is not fun. And I just think if you like kind of mom-com, the mom comedy books, this will definitely scratch that itch. It was very good. Next is Nighttime is My Time by Mary Higgins Clark. This is one of her older books, and I just have decided I don't really like a lot of her books, especially like the really old ones. This one I gave 2 stars. This is about a serial killer called the Owl or something, and nighttime is his time. He has been taking down one by one all these girls who sat at the same lunch table in high school. So I'm assuming that means they were like a group of friends, and there's 1 or 2 left, and so they're in danger. We get the perspective of the killer, and so we know his motivations. We don't know exactly who it is, but we know his motivations, which puts it down to be like only a couple people that it can be. And then again, the characters were so indistinguishable that by the time we got the reveal, it's like, okay, well, I knew it was one of you guys, and you guys all kind of sound the same, so cool. So 2 stars on that. Next is Secret Lives by Diane Chamberlain, and you guys know.
Get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, on my watch, or whatever it's called. Anyway, Secret Lives by Diane Chamberlain. I love Diane Chamberlain. She is one of my all-time favorite authors. Yet her really old backlist, like her first works, are just not for me. And this is one of those that was just not for me. I'm giving this, I think, 3 stars, but that's kind of generous. I think maybe more like 2.5 would be more accurate. And this is about a bunch of secret lives. It's about a woman who's trying to find out more about her mom. That's kind of a trope or whatever, but there's like just a lot going on in this book, and everybody's secret lives, and I didn't care about any of them. I'll just read you the back. Disillusioned actress Eden Riley abandons the life of Hollywood glamour and a broken marriage to return to her mother's childhood home in rural Virginia. Eden's full of questions about her mother, a famous children's author who died when Eden was very young. So her mom was this like kind of notoriously eccentric children's book author, and her mom has like a huge history of abuse, and we find out all about that as the book goes on. And it's like, this lady suffered from a lot of trauma. Like, let's just leave her be. So on her search for answers, she meets the handsome yet mysterious Ben Alexander, an archaeologist and a friend of her uncle, because she was raised by her uncle. But Ben has his own demons. La-di-da-di-da-da. There's just a lot going on, and none of it was interesting. 2.5 stars. Next is The Eating Instinct, Food, Culture, Body Image, and Guilt in America by Virginia Soul Smith. So I was listening to a podcast. Just for information's sake, I don't listen to any really bookish podcasts. I listen to podcasts about motherhood and like food and exercise, because those are 2 other elements that I really enjoy listening about or talking about. And I feel like booktube is plenty to like fill my bookish cup. And if I added bookish podcasts, I feel like it would just be overwhelming. And so I was listening to some sort of body positivity podcast and heard about Virginia Soul Smith, and she's got 2 books. And so I really wanted to read them both. And this one was interesting. Based on the tagline, Food Culture, Body Image, and Guilt in America, I kind of had different expectations. I didn't really even read what this was about, so maybe I would have known different if I would have. But this is about, so her daughter, Virginia Soul Smith, had an eating issue as an infant and young child, and she just stopped eating at like 2 months old and ended up having to have lots of surgeries, all that kind of stuff, and it kind of caused her to examine like what is instinct as far as eating, what is human nature, and where does that get corrupted in things. And so this talks a lot about her daughter's experience, which for me was a little bit triggering, just because we had a preemie that was 2 months old, and so they're talking about NG tubes, like feeding them through their nose and all of that kind of stuff, and not being able to have breast milk, and not being able to, like just missing those elements of motherhood. And that is something that is kind of triggering to me because of my experience with my third daughter. And so I did love that part, but that's a me thing totally. There is more too about, there is talk of like eating disorders, but it's more like ARFID and things that are not like eating disorders in pursuit of thinness, but instead like eating disorders because of sensory issues and things like that. So I enjoyed this book and learned a lot about it, and enjoyed that it was not just the same anorexia, bulimia, binge eating kind of stories. Not saying those don't have a place, but this was definitely different and offered something that I had not read before. So I thought this was really interesting, and I'm going to read her next book hopefully soon. So then we've got Slightly Settled by Wendy Markham. So this is number 2 in Slightly series. So in the first one, it's about this main character who it's called Slightly Single because she is like with this guy, but he's an actor and he leaves for the summer and says he doesn't have a phone and like all this stuff, like really blows her off and treats her terrible. And so she, even though she's with somebody, she's for all intents and purposes single. And then in this one, she's kind of settling down with somebody. But there's a little bit of a love triangle because while she was with her first boyfriend, she met this guy named Buckley, who is a really good friend. And are they just friends? Are they not? And then she also meets this guy at a work Christmas party named Jack. And so there's a little bit of a love triangle, but it definitely follows the main character. And this is one of those early 2000s series that follows, I think it's like 5 books that follows the same character throughout, kind of similar to like a shopaholic book. This definitely gives me some shopaholic vibes. So if you like that, you might like this. And I enjoy these books. I feel like I can just read them all the time and they're just easy to pick up and put down. And so I really enjoyed this and gave it 4 stars. And then the last book that I read is Strands of Truth by Colleen Coble. And this one I should have probably DNF'd. I gave it 2 stars. It's kind of similar to like The Secret Lives by Diane Chamberlain. It's just all about strands of truth. And this woman is trying to figure out, she doesn't have a mom. She grew up in a foster home. And then Oliver Jackson finally took her under his wing. Now she's trying to find out more. It reveals that maybe she has a half sister. I'm kind of thinking Colleen Coble is just not for me because you get 1,000 characters, 1,000 plot lines. None of them like have any tension, and I just did not care. So I gave this 2 stars. So that's kind of like a common theme that like the books that I liked, I really liked. The books that I didn't like, I just didn't care and had like a really hard time remembering them now days or weeks later. And, I don't know. So that is my second half of May wrap up. Sorry it was so long. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you're interested in reading any of these books after I've talked about them. And that's it. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.